So Penn State loses in upset fashion to Illinois in 9 overtimes. 9 overtimes. Now, I'm not exactly a fan of these new overtime rules. I think it's kind of weird and different, and I thought it was fine just the way it is. But, I mean, if you're looking for excitement, I guess there was plenty of that, especially when the defenses were making plays and when Penn State was just running right up the gut into the teeth of a very tough front, at least today, for Illinois, and basically just giving them the opportunity over and over again until finally they were able to convert. Illinois, 23.5 point underdogs coming into this game. I picked Penn State to cover when I didn't watch the game at the beginning because I was watching my Michigan game. I was like, all right, Penn State's struggling. It's not looking good. Must have meant that Roberson is in at quarterback. It's not Clifford, obviously. And then I look on the box score, and sure enough, it is Sean Clifford. So what went wrong? What went wrong if you are Penn State? And it's pretty evident. It's pretty evident. Number one, they couldn't rush the ball worth a dang. 29 total carries today for just 62 yards. You got to be able to out-pound Illinois. And we're going to get to it. Illinois on the other end very much out-pounded Penn State. 29 carries for 62 yards. That's just 2.1 yards per carry. Noah Cain ran the ball just 11 times for 43 yards, 3.9 yards per carry. And it wasn't like Clifford was very spectacular, to say the least. 19 of 34 for 165 yards. Didn't even hit the 200 mark. 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Penn State offense, anemic, nothing, terrible, awful today, absolutely hideous. I'm not going to talk too much about them because they'll probably show up against my Michigan Wolverines. I'm going to that game. I still, even after watching this game today, don't feel great about that game at Penn State. But I'll tell you what, I feel a lot better about it. Wow. It's just unreal. Penn State, barring any kind of miracle, pretty much made what was supposed to be a 4-team race in the Big Ten East now a 3-team race between Ohio State, Michigan State, and Michigan. And one of those between Michigan and Michigan State could really get an upper hand based off of that game next week. And Penn State has Ohio State next week, so they will for sure be eliminated if they lose that one. They have their work cut out for them as they still have to play the 3 head honchos there in the Big Ten East. And so you lost to Iowa. Understandable, your quarterback got hurt. You only lost by 3. You were probably going to win that game before your quarterback got hurt. So that was more understandable. It's a tough one to swallow, and it really probably was going to bite them in the butt in the long run in this Big Ten East race. But you couldn't afford to lose anymore, and Illinois takes you out. They just take you out. And Illinois has been known to do this, man. They got the win against Michigan years ago. I remember that quite well. They got that win over Wisconsin a couple seasons ago, and now here they are again against Penn State. West versus East, and West, the 2-5 West team, gets the nod, gets the W as 23.5 point underdogs. Wow, unreal. I mean, I picked them to cover Penn State, so I lost that one, but I went okay. I'm doing okay in the pick 'em if anybody's worried. Passing the ball for Illinois, that wasn't exactly their forte. In fact, I mean, I'm looking at the stats, and you would think they were just first quarter stats. Art Sitkowski threw the ball 19 times for just 38 yards on just 8 completions, and he had 0 touchdowns and 1 interception. That is god-awful. I know Brandon Peters has really missed his mark, and he hasn't been as accurate, and even when he was at Michigan, he's never quite been the quarterback that we thought he maybe could be. But standing in the pocket and the arm strength and the delivery and stuff like that, you can't convince me that Brandon Peters, when healthy, and he's obviously healthy right now, that's been a big problem in his career as a whole. You can't convince me that he's not a better quarterback than Art Sitkowski. That's just a terrible effort by him, but he got bailed out big time out of his front line on the defensive front, that's for sure. They really held their own, and in the trenches in general, Illinois won this football game. As you see, rushing the ball, Illinois 33 carries for 223 yards for their main runner, Chase Brown, before he went down with the injury. And then McCray had 24 for 142 yards. Penn State gives up 357 yards on the ground. 357 off 67 attempts. That's a lot, but it's still 5.3 yards per carry. So if you're Michigan and you're watching this, I mean, obviously, that's what we do well. We run the football very well. So, a lot of times I've been pleading for, please throw the ball downfield. Let's start to get Kate McNamara some air under these balls and everything else. But we might want to run the ball there with Corum and Haskins and that duo and that combo, because it certainly worked for Illinois. but you can't take too much stock into it. Penn State's been good against the run, man. They stopped Iowa's run attack. They stopped, who else was it? Dang it. Indiana's run attack. Auburn, they did okay against. I think Auburn averaged like 4.3 yards per carry. That's good, but not outstanding. Auburn can typically do a little bit better than that in most instances. But today, Penn State's front seven just unable to stop the run. And that's pretty much the thick and thin of it. That's the story of it. That's how a 23.5-point dog can come into this stadium at Happy Valley. And yeah, it's a 12 o'clock game. Like I said, I hope Michigan and Penn State's a 12 o'clock game. I'll take that all day over a night game. It just seems like the Penn State players, they come out flat in these games early on. I mean, they almost lost to Wisconsin first week of the season. That was an early game. That's just when they come out the flattest. Night games, they show up and show out. And again, I hope it's not a night game against us, but wow, 9 overtimes, back and forth, back and forth. I know you guys probably agree, if you're a Penn State fan or just a Big Ten fan in general, you got to be watching Penn State in these overtimes and like, why, when you're averaging 2.1 yards per carry, are you just trying to go up the gut, the strength of Illinois' defense in this particular game? It makes no sense at all. It doesn't make any sense at all. You got to get Dotson in a one-on-one coverage and whatever. They tried some things or whatever, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's going to make a play at some point, right? I mean, you just got to keep going to him in my mind, not running up the gut the way they did. I just didn't like the approach. It was ugly. It was not, I mean, these teams look like they never even practiced for this situation, even though knowing the rules have changed. And it cost Penn State in the long run. It cost them in the long run. They couldn't make a play when they needed to make a play. And now they're likely out of the Big Ten East, and it's probably a disappointing season for them, all things considered. Not what they hoped for, that's for sure. You got to be thinking, if you're a Penn State fan at this point, man, how much longer does James Franklin have? Because it's just the same old story each and every year, over and over again. And I, of all people, would know that as a Michigan fan. If Harbaugh was to come out and lose to Michigan State in ugly fashion, obviously that's, two undefeated teams going against each other, so there's no real shame in that. But if we look terrible, we don't look like we're ready to play, and little brother beats up on big brother once again, the talking heads are going to get going. Same kind of concept for James Franklin or whatever. It's just good. Over and over again. Good. But when are we going to be great? If you're Penn State, you're starting to get further and further removed from that 2016 year, that magical year with Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley, and the offense just running rampant, and the spread attack of Joe Moorhead, and just points. You're getting further and further removed from that, and you're starting to watch and see, and it's just the same old story, left and right. If I'm a Penn State fan, to tell you the truth, I'm pretty disappointed. Because to me, coming into this year, even though you guys had to play both Wisconsin, which we didn't know Wisconsin was going to be as bad as they ended up being, but Iowa as well. So even though you had to play two of the tougher Western Division opponents, I felt like you guys could either go 2-0 in those or 1-1. I definitely didn't think you would have 2 losses at this point in the season, losing inexplicably to Illinois. So it's absolutely 100% another disappointment for Penn State, a year removed from them starting out 0-5. Last year, you kind of give them, a little bit of a break because it's a weird 2020 pandemic season, but this season, there's absolutely no excuses for it. You still got some things to play for. You still got a lot of good teams that you're playing, but, Michigan, us, Michigan State, Ohio State, they got to be hoping that this is just, takes a lot of the wind out of the sails here for Penn State, because if they're not really playing for anything and their heads are a little bit down, this is a good chance to take advantage of that opportunity. And for our sake, I hope we're able to do that. But yeah, let me know if you're a Penn State fan. Let me know down below, or if you're just a football fan in general. How much longer does James Franklin have at Penn State? It's not looking good. Openings are coming up left and right in college football each and every year, and maybe at this point it's time to make a move, because he makes some of the most questionable calls in the biggest moments of the biggest games, and this one wasn't even a big game. It just turned into a big game, and he still made questionable calls at big moments. All right, I'm done with this one. I'm gonna go ahead and get the Michigan reaction video. Didn't even plan on doing this reaction video, but I can't not react to a 9 overtime game. So I'll finish up this one, then the Michigan one will come out, and then we'll do the Ohio State reaction tonight after the Indiana game. We'll see you there. Have a great one. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. On Tap Sports, we cover all the sports all the time, particularly college football.